draft definitely has to be better than game number 1 for Griffin. This time on the blue side. Gonna start off, they do not want to give Rakan to Tucson.
Also, taking away the Xayah Rakan Flex. The Nocturne hotfixes are in, but they're small, so Nocturne will be banned away. We'll see if Afreeca can just afford to go for the pretty standard Nocturne Talia as the start of the ban phase here on the red side with the Aatrox, the expected third ban. The Vladimir was ignored in game 1, even though we have 6-0 Vladimir from Viper and 4-0 from Aiming. I'd be surprised to see it go through picks and bans again.
Griffin really quickly take away that Tom Kench. Didn't have the ability or the flexibility with their bans on the red side. So they say, okay, don't want to let Tucson have that. By the way, Tucson gets his first win on the Tom Kench. He's now 1-4. So he's not without a win on that pick, at least for now.
Very easy game for the Tom Kench last time. I don't even remember him saving anyone, Valdez. In fact, I couldn't really tell you Tucson's contribution to the game, but he still picked up a win. They all count.
You know, he when anyone got even close to danger, he just did it as a precaution. They were so far ahead, they didn't even really need him. Talia gets banned. Once again, you know, some hot fixes, some small nerfs to her, but she's still ridiculous in the jungle. So we will not be seeing her.
He's always available, and Rather has played it before, so that would be a very early pick for him. They're actually
0 seconds, and Shen, with barely any time left over, Lehens will get his hands on the Shen.
But a disagreement. Lehens' laning phase on the Morgana was pretty weak, even though he was 4-0 coming into that game. They'll give away Swain Morgana if Afreeca won it on the red side, just to get Lehens the first pick. If you remember the series against KT, KT banned a lot of supports, and Lehens took a first pick Alistar just to get a comfort champion. That was a 2-0 loss, of course, for the side of Griffin. So while the Shen is a very powerful first pick, with Morgana, Swain, the pick of the jungle is available, not necessarily inspired by the last-second Shen for first pick.
And you're giving over Swain and Kindred. Spirit looked quite good. I mean, he didn't have anyone to really jungle against in terms of a real jungler, so he should have, unless they want to go for the funnel once again here, Griffin, more of a adversary in the jungle. But the Braum here again, an exhaust for Tarzan again, and there it is as well. The Lucian gets locked in. I'm sure this is going to draw a lot of concerned faces from the side of Griffin and their fans, because they're going to try it again when it looked very weak in game 1.
And I know a lot of people have this kind of breaking point about Lucian funnels. I actually think it can be very powerful, but what I need to see is winning side lanes with the Lucian funnel. Lucian doesn't have the ability to reposition with the killer instinct, doesn't have engage like some of the other funnel champions, but does a hell of a lot of damage if he gets his mid-game items early, but he needs lanes that either win or provide initiation. He didn't have either of those things in game number 1. So Griffin, let's wait and see if they can adjust the second round. The first round, I get why people are concerned, but there's definitely a draft that starts like this for Griffin that they win.
That fan believes in CV Max. We'll see if he can pull his team together with the help of the new drafting coach and make something happen here for their team. Mundo going to be banned down, as well as the Gangplank. Don't want to see Keen on that pick again.
Was something that could safely farm and also could contribute into side lane plays, so don't mind the Gangplank ban. Afreeca will want to flex this Swain for a while. Expected to be Aiming's pick. Would definitely think it would go there, even though Cuvée is playing the top lane Swain pretty reliably, and so is Tal. Meal banned away. Bit of a peculiar one, actually, by the Afreeca Freecs. But they're not 100% sure the funnel's happening. They should be. Shen has been played top lane by Sword, but very, very unlikely to come out in this game. A lot of top lane bans overall.
Gonna take the Alistar here. Definitely is a really good source of hard engage on the side, and also it's Tucson on an engaged champion. Once again, the Alistar, he is 4-3 on the picks so far. See if he can pick up another win.
Please no Cho'Gath is what I ask from this roster. It's going to be Morgana for Rather in the bot lane. He's going to be playing bot lane Morgana from this point onwards. And it's the Cho'Gath again. I'm not a fan, Valdez, of the low initiation here on the side of Griffin. If they can find a way to get a 20-minute Baron, this comp can work. If they can somehow get Drake control, which I guess with Morgana pushing might be possible, then that can win. But going for this comp as a repeat, concerning for me is Keen is looking to go to an old favorite and set up some split push on the side of Afreeca.
Okay, well, he is looking at another pick.
Okay.
We've seen a lot of mediocre Kleds here in the LCK, but looking to take that up on the top side here. Should be Keen. I suppose it could have been Swain up there, but will be Keen up on that Kled, so we'll see if he can do a bit better on that pick.
We did see a top lane Kled struggle against a Mundo a couple of days ago, but this is, of course, the old time that we used to see Kled come out as a fighter that could beat some of the tanks with all of his shred on the W. Interesting pick, it gives them more engage. And that is always something pretty welcome for team comps. The Swain will be so happy they can waddle into the middle of a fight and find a bit more. Griffin, they're trying something here. I think with the Morgana and the Shen bot lane, they should be able to push super hard against Aiming and Tucson. And it also means they will have an AP Black Shield, not just a support Black Shield. So it should be more durability for Viper. It's small tweaks. I'm just not a fan of the Cho'Gath in this comp because with very unreliable engage, if you fall behind, it feels like you just get run over.
It is going to be hard to access many members on that side. The Zoe can be so slippery. The Kindred can always lambs or spite to save himself, wait for the follow-up from his team, and the Kled is going to be diving all over the place, and he can hop off of Skarl for a little bit of extra help. I suppose if you're going to try this twice when it looked really mediocre in game number 1, this must be something that is working so much in scrims where they're like, no, we win every single game. That was just a fluke in game 1. Let's try it again here in game 2.
They didn't play any funnel when they played Afreeca Freecs 6 days ago. We'll talk about what this comp does have. There's one area that they could try to abuse when it comes to smite timings, because a funneled Lucian and a Feast is a lot of true damage onto neutrals they could never get near in game number 1.
So guys, the countdown has started here. Game number 2, Griffin versus Afreeca. Let's do it. The roar of the Griffin fans. We'll see if it pulls them through after their 8-1 sprint to first place here in LCK. They have gained a massive following, not just in Korea too. We see you guys over there in Western communities and elsewhere outside of Korea loving this Griffin play so far. Everybody's getting hyped. Everybody wants to see that, but more importantly, some cowbell.
Exactly. I'm happy you got there, Valdez. That's what I was hyped to see. Tucson gives the fans what they want. They want the cowbell. But, you know, Judicious doesn't want to get us burnt out on the cowbell too early.
I love the observer. He's zooming in. He's like, hey, we still got some time.
Waiting for some late vision perhaps here, the Afreeca Freecs. Always good to know which side the funnel starts on, but it's pretty easy to diagnose because you'll see Lucian and the Braum enter from the bottom side of mid when they come to meet the minion wave here.
It must feel so good to have 3 people trying to leash for you when you're funneling yourself.
It's definitely both pressure and also the good feels, because this is very much one damage threat on the side of Griffin. Let's talk about what has changed from game number 1, because you could do one quick scan over the left side and say, same crap that we saw in game 1 that they lost with, and you'd be right and wrong. The Morgana and... Well, let's talk about the Morgana, because she's involved in a lot of battling here.
Yeah, really trying to get on top of her there. Level 1 Alistair was Tucson trying to make it work, but no can do.
Morgana Shen is at least going to be a pushing lane, because the Morgana can just put down the puddle and disengage. We always talk about if you take a Morgana in the carry role, very easy to roam for the Shen, because you're not worried about Morgana being turret dived at any point. Has a stopwatch coming online at level 8. Black Shield and the ability to ult under turret means that she can stay in lane. Just maxing the Tormented Soil and pushing will be the Morgana. That means a couple of things. They'll have Shove in the lane. Remember, they had 2 losing side lanes in game number 1 after the Swain just got owned by Aiming in the 2v2. This time the Morgana will push, will be able to shove until maybe level 9 when Swain can have a low enough cooldown to start intercepting the minion wave. But reliably, we will see Morgana pushing, so pushing side lane means less pressure onto the funnel, and theoretically, happier inroads. The side lane turret's definitely going to be healthier than they were in game number 1 when they rolled down pretty easily. The Cho'Gath is still here. That's the part we're surprised to see. But the Cho'Gath does give them Feast and also an over-leveled Smite from Viper because he's being funneled. So if with a winning side lane, they can actually take some Drakes, actually control the jungle. There is a way to make this draft work. It's still pretty narrow, though. That's the surprise, is it's a pretty narrow win condition. If things start to go bad, they just go really bad.
Yeah, you may look towards other teams who maybe are struggling to play a straight-up game, and they want to do something a little bit cheesy, a little bit different to go for this strategy. Griffin, they've shown that they can win straight up against the best of the best in the world, even here in Korea, but they decide anyway that, no, we're going to go for this strategy. Now, again, as you've been highlighting, you need to get ahead for it to work. When it's behind, it looks pretty trash. So we'll see if they can do that here in this game. Another good thing, at least for them to start off the game, is that they got both scuttles, so they denied that first mark away from Spirit this time around. And
definitely just to go a little bit more specific, if this particular version of the funnel falls behind, it definitely does look poor. Yeah. There are other funnels that can afford to fall behind, but the low initiation here is the problem. Is Spirit waiting to show himself.
Looking for it, he does get the leash, but the very respectful flash from Sword, he did see Spirit coming in on the ward. That is in that brush. You can see that the mark was on the top lane, was on to Sword. He wanted to get that gank early at level 4 with red buff. Isn't going to happen, though, as Sword is just so respectful.
I mean, he's also pretty boned because right now the wave is pushing in. He might just put more points into his queue apart from the one because, unfortunately, he hasn't got a jungler coming to help him, and Rumble and Cho'Gath always had that same problem of, if I can freely overextend, laning phase pretty powerful. In this scenario, Keen's just going to allow it to push in and freeze it outside turret, and there's nobody to come help the Cho'Gath, so he's just going to lose CS.
Yeah.
Outside of pushing with his Q or trying to clip the minions at the side.
It is so difficult to deal with this when the lane gets into this position. That's part of the reason why that gank was perfectly timed, right? Waited for the Cho'Gath to try to push it into turret, and then they say, okay, let's go now, get his flash. And Sword, he's just sitting here, he's farming with his Q, doing nothing.
And we've all played solo queue games, either as a top laner or with a top laner who says, I need a gank, I can't do anything, I need a gank, and it starts spam pinging, it's very annoying. This is, this is not what is actually happening from the Cho'Gath. This is the scenario where the Cho'Gath says, I actually can't do anything about my lane without dying. And unfortunately, he has no jungler to come help him. He's just boned in the top side. So, sucks to be Sword is kind of the summary of my point.
Yeah, it means that he will be getting pretty far behind when it comes to the CS numbers and the farm. You'll notice that Keen, he has no reason to push in. Right, he's not looking to get an early turret against the Cho'Gath. He's just denying as much CS as possible. Might just be seeing the Cho'Gath on only Righteous Glory at 25 minutes again.
Maybe Braum has to come top lane and just help push with a couple of Relic shield stacks because the freeze is going to be forever if King can allow it to be. He doesn't even need to shop. He's only against a Glacial Shroud, so while he'd love to shop, so few options for Sword. And if Kindred is never shown on a ward or never ganks, this is just the life forever of Sword.
Well, he does have the lane pushing in his direction now. There were a ton of range minions that were helping push the wave towards Sword, but took some of them out with the Q. Wanted to get some of that farm, so this may be the moment where he finally gets out underneath the grasp of Keen.
Well, it's been at a pretty significant cost, and the funnel is usually at some level of cost, but this is getting to not like this territory pretty early as Sword says, I might be turret dive now as we get, we get a bit of skin spotlights going on there. Nice.
Oh, look at that. That's so annoying, too. Here we go. Going to be a second teleport committed to by, looks like Tucson, actually, but the follow-up teleport coming in from Griffin, trying to get on top of this cow, but he is going to have to flash away. In comes Rather. He's going to miss the binding. Very unfortunate. Had he landed that onto Tucson on the cow, they probably would have killed him.
And this is going to allow Swain to push in. They'll lose some lane pressure. Bot side, long walk for the Morgana. Maybe that was one person too many. Going to top side. Understand what Griffin were trying to pull off, but rather not known for his mechanics. Very much a shot calling player, very much a utility mid laner. Not able to pull off the flash means that they lose out on a bit of momentum here, does Griffin.
Kind of awkward. They do at least save Sword's life so that he can sit here 30 CS behind at 7 minutes. We'll see if Afreeca and Keen can try to set up that freeze once again, but we notice that Spirit level 6 is pathing down towards the south side of the map. bottom side here, so going to be a little bit harder. You were mentioning Braum going up towards the top side. Looks like he actually has joined up here.
Right now seems to be for a counter gank. Not going to be seeing the Kindred play any attention here, and I believe revealed. Trying to help Sword fully push in. Well, Keen is having a happy game. The moment you get to teleport onto a minion under the enemy turret at 6 minutes, you know things are going pretty well. Mark picked up by the Kindred, I believe his first mark.
Yep.
But the Infernal Drake off the backside, a nice bonus. And remember, we mentioned that with these adaptations from Griffin, while it was the soul of the comp from game number 1, we wanted to see them actually use the Morgana lane pressure to get some Drakes, to use their smites. We're not going to see that for the first Drake, and it's something they need to address to make this draft work.
Infernal Drake going to be really nice there for Afreeca. We do have the completed jungle item and the completed level 2 boots out of Viper here. It's going to be very fed, as we all do expect once again. Spirit definitely going to be a little bit less happy on the Kindred this time around. Only 1 mark. See if he can make it work.
It's the RNG nature of Kindred that we always talk about when it works in her benefit, but this is definitely one of the ones where a bit of lean timing and also the double scuttle at the start of the game did put a pretty big pause on that. Again, 4's the magic number. Everything after that is kind of a bonus. So if you can get to 4 before the action starts, then he'll be just pretty content, all things considered. Watching Viper power farm, rush around, and in game 1, I looked at it and I said, well, even if he gets all of his items, I don't really see how the fights work. I don't see how Griffin wins. They have more this time. Mentioned how in game number 1, Viper had item timings where he'd have to initiate and also be able to put out damage and have to deal with enemy threat. Speaking of enemy threat.
Okay, jumping in here is level 6 Tucson. Doesn't commit to any ultimates or anything like that. Just trying to scare them a little bit.
Rather will have a more significant impact on the side of Griffin than Chovy could in game 1 because of the Morgana. Either Viper goes in with a 600 magic damage shield and can do some sick ice skating, or we see an AP Morgana flash and ult, and at least that is also going to be some level of relevance in a fight, some level of control. So I think it's going to be more reliable around Rather, but could still be the same result, Valdez. This might be a 2-0 to Afreeca if we don't see Griffin pick up the pace soon.
See Spirit and Kuro coming down here into the bottom lane. They want to set up this 4v2. Tucson waiting on it, is tanking that turret, but Lehens with the dodge circle buying so much time. The TP comes in, but it is not enough. They take out the Shen. They take out Rather too, and that is going to be 2-0 already to Afreeca.
Usually impossible to turret dive, but they pull it off. They have the stopwatch there to mean the Alistar doesn't go down. However, mid lane turret may just go down for this. 2 kills for a turret, usually you'll take the kills. But Viper and Tarzan do spare the blushes a little bit when it comes to first break.
Yeah, they're at least able to get that. The TP was coming in from Sword, probably got interrupted or just decided, hey, they're dead, I'll just cancel it. As there's no point for him to go in there. So let's take a look at the replay and how this went down.
It was really well coordinated by Afreeca. They have all their members bot lane. They're now spotted, so they knew it was a gank, but Black Shield is on cooldown very early. Tucson misses his stuff, but it doesn't matter because Spirit is a damage jungler. Kindred is so different against these funnel comps and the tank junglers who look frustrated in the first weeks of the season. They pull out the damage, they turret dive. It ends up being a turret and 2 kills for the first brick in mid lane. Lucian may be getting his item timings even earlier, but how much will it matter when this game hits 20 minutes?
Yeah. The Alistar with the stopwatch. We know we talk about this stopwatch meta, but it's part of the reason why they picked that Alistar at the 4th place position in the draft on the red side. It's just one of the best divers as well. You know, you get that Kindred, you get the Zoe who can roam on down, the long-range trouble bubbles. It makes diving that bottom lane so easy for the Afreeca Freecs.
And it shows how flexible the options are, because if Tahm Kench was available, they would have just taken Tahm Kench and played it differently. Tahm Kench was down, was banned away, blue side ban from Griffin. They take Alistar, and that means they can be aggressive. Alistar plus stopwatch equals successful turret dive on one of the most slippery duo lanes it could be. Morgana Shen is very slippery. They still get the clean double kill. Nice adaptations from Afreeca. Still waiting to see if the small adaptations Griffin made will actually make inroads on their game in game 2.
Yeah. You notice a lot of the focus from Griffin is up towards the Rift Herald this time around. On the blue side, it's going to be a lot easier to try to protect that objective. The Spirit is not just going to walk on in and steal it for free. It's probably going to have to jump the wall and clear out all the vision that we do see, including the Scuttle Crab there from Griffin so far. So we'll see if he can sneak that one away. At the very least, it will be delayed. Should be favored to go over towards Afreeca, but we'll see if he does pick that up.
So for Griffin, how do you win this game? Easiest way, Baron at 20 minutes. We've seen plenty of teams not put down vision around Baron at 20 minutes and then be surprised when the enemy team with a funnel is able to solo it down so damn fast. They have just the most secure on Baron you could ever ask for, with the Feast being around 1,200 damage probably at 20 minutes, and also an over-leveled smite from Viper. So that's one of the easiest ways to actually push forward. Doesn't have to be a steal.
Oh boy.
Here's Viper.
No turret here. Kuro going to have to blow his own flash, as well as the TP coming on in here from aiming. So kind of an awkward spot. That's a nice little bonus benefit over to Griffin.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. That was just, oh wait, we don't have a turret, crap, was the thought process there from Afreeca. Don't plug and play a turret being down this early in the mid lane. So straight up mistake. May not be as costly as the only straight up mistake in game number 1 where they gave away the Baron, but still something to work on from the side of Afreeca, who are prized for being a very well-drilled team with all the practice they invest in. Rather doesn't have a turret, but he's still Morgana, so going to be relatively safe on these missions.
There was one thing I wanted to mention earlier. The vision line that you were talking about in game 1 from Afreeca was stellar. And it was here early on in the game. They had 4 control wards down at the bottom side before they did go for the gank. And look at how it switches up depending on the objective. Before they wanted to go to the bottom side, take out the turret and get the gank. But now they're thinking about the Rift Herald, and there are 3 control wards up towards the top side. The 4th one was down there in the tri-brush on the bottom side. But you can see how Afreeca really likes to make the vision work for them.
And we should explain to the audience that because everyone on Griffin is on a short leash, they don't have a true jungler who can roam around and clear wards. They have someone who is min-maxing farm by going from the shortest distance between anything he can kill to pick up minions. There's actually not a lot of time to put down control wards or clear control wards. So control wards against a funnel comp are the most likely to stick compared to any other comp. So it's not a surprise that Afreeca have more control wards down at a moment. It is a treat to see where they're putting it, moving it, like you mentioned, a triangle topside just to say, now we can see Kled overextend with almost no cost, and now we can also set up around Rift Herald. But the Rift Herald's this time being started by Griffin. So there's a couple of recalls from Afreeca. Are they going to give this up, or are they going to contest it? Love to see a bit of a skirmish, but for now, looking like it might not happen.
Looks like they're just giving it up. Talking about vision, so much vision in the red side jungle by Griffin. They have 4 or so wards up there. They cleaned out all the vision at the Rift Herald and even started it on top of a control ward. But Afreeca, without the Zoe Flash, without Aiming's teleport, I suppose they just say, we don't want to fight you right now. Rift Herald is not a big enough objective for us to potentially lose a team fight at this point in the game.
But it is also the 3-minute 30 preview of when that Baron spawns, look at Blade the Ruin King and a Cho'Gath secure, and be very worried if you're Afreeca Freecs. So hopefully that will be, if they even needed it, a reminder of what can happen from the side of Griffin. Spirit and Tucson walking up. Seeing on the bot side here, Cho'Gath just slowly picking up farm. A 40 CS lead, as you expected after the early game for the Kled.
Our resident Lucian sitting at 262 CS. Very, very far ahead of everyone else. We'll see if he does pick up a QSS this time around. It's definitely very useful against the Zoe Swing composition.
I don't know. If you have Morgana, an AP Morgana, and a Shen, and a Braum, and you're taking QSS, it just seems like the wrong move. I think you need the damage as fast as possible. You now have a Black Shield that won't be popped instantly. It has a lot more defensive utility around it. We always talk about that QSS tax, but there's no Skarner or Malzahar, and you have all the utility. I think you need to hit hard and fast in the mid game.
Yeah.
Lucian in the late game is good, but he's not Kai'Sa. So actually take the most when he's strong.
Yeah, I would agree. decided he needed it in game number 1. I think this will definitely open up his build. Speaking of opening up, actually aiming, trying to go 1v2 again. He's feeling it tonight, especially after the way the early game went in game number 1. Speaking of which, Sword might be feeling it here. 3-on-1. He is the Cho'Gath, and he is super tanky. But here's Shen, who may have just stood United into his death. They're thinking about a turret dive here, but the rest of Griffin is rolling in. Keen going way too deep in here. The taunt is going to land. Lamb's Respite, though, is perfect there from Spirit. They knock him out, and Tushin gets the follow-up engage. It is perfect, and the double kill over to the side of the Zoe. Afreeca looked like they went too deep. They were just baiting Griffin into it.
There were so many layers of mistake to start this first from Afreeca, but the turnaround by the end, the ending by Tushin was so smart, headbutting the Braum out of the Lamb's Respite so they got the first kill, and then having the turnaround onto the rest of the members. Calamity of errors to start the action, but you have to say when the action was thick and fast, Afreeca Freecs was better.
Unbelievable, just trying to make it work. You mentioned the mistakes that started the play.
Sword just walks up to no vision and is surprised to find 3 people. A solo mistake from Sword, should not do this. From there, nice interruption by aiming. So a mistake in terms of the teleport by Rather. And then they go for the turret dive, and this is too aggressive. This is very risky, given that Griffin can react. But the turnaround here, first on the flash Lamb's Respite from Spirit, beautifully done. And then also headbutting out Tarzan, getting the first kill. This is really well done by Tushin to mop up a calamity of errors on both sides.
Tushin and Spirit going hand in hand, holding hands, and holding the rest of Afreeca. Just keeping them above water here, just making them not pay for their mistakes. The headbutt into the flash 2-person pulverized, by the way, which made the follow-up on that fight even better.
And this is why I hyped up Spirit's Kindred. When this champion was first released years ago, Spirit played an ungodly amount of Kindred. I'm talking about 60, 70, 80 games in a week and kept up his Kindred. He was a player people looked to. Loved the Hurricane build back in the day when the marks were very easy to get. You could just Hurricane down multiple people. He knows his ranges. We've seen the failed Flash Lamb's Respite from multiple players in the LCK already. When it comes to Spirit, he knows his Kindred ranges.
He's having a beast of a game so far. Griffin, though, this time around, even after the festivities of that fight, they do have the Rift Herald. They aren't that far behind as compared to game number 1, so they're trying to follow this up. Unfortunately, the Rift Herald usage, it was about to run out. They decided to just get 1 charge in the top side.
And you know what they want? They want to win. But do you know what they really want as a smaller thing? They would love a kill, Valdez. They've had none in the entire series, and we're 21 minutes into game 2.
It felt almost free when they saw Keen dive in the turret. They're like, really? I know you're playing Kled, but that's, you know, are you trying to give us a kill? And then Spirit just says, no. You cannot kill my younger brother. I will take you down. Speaking of Spirit, running forward, looking for Viper here.
We're rolling.
Led charge coming into the back line. There's the engage from Tushin. He's going to knock 2 of them up, and they get the Lucian. And that means the Braum will go down 2. And Sword with nowhere to go is just going to awkwardly feast Kuro. And that's 3 more kills to Afreeca.
And that's what the charge can do. There's no way to get the Lucian out, even with the utility standing next to him. You can be decisive. You can snowball a lead. And they want a Baron.
Should be just about as free as you'd like it at this point. The Morgana and the Shen can do absolutely nothing. And a couple of mistakes and fantastic plays out of Afreeca to pull it back here means that still no kills for Griffin. And they might be looking down the barrel of another 0-2 against a strong team.
I don't know if I can ever remember a series, even a 2-0 series, where the enemy team didn't get a single kill in a loss, Valdez, but we're definitely setting up for one like that. Best thing about the charge is that even my boy Tushin can get in there quickly. He doesn't need Ghost. He's got the assist from the Kled. They dive in. They get all the kills. Sword thinks he's teleporting in as a tank. Nope. It's just making a donation to the enemy team. Everyone, gap closes, great collapse, and how about a second Inferno for Afreeca Freecs?
You can tell that Afreeca is really feeling it, even just the little things, right? Tushin's play, tanking all the turret shots as they dive, even after his ultimate times out. Just everybody moving as a squad, and Afreeca looking so good tonight. And people are going to point back to the series and say, well, Griffin, you know, they're so hyped up but Afreeca, the more practiced and veteran team here, going to take them down in a very similar fashion to the way that KT took them down in that 0-2.
Let's assume Griffin lose 2-0, looking very likely. The hot takes will be abound, right? Everyone has a hot take, like, lol, Griffin overrated.
All these Lucian funnel.
Exactly. They're going to talk about the draft and say what a fail. I think all the hot takes is too early. This team will be 8-2. They're still going to be the top of the standings team in Korea. But it's also too early to pronounce them as the best team in Korea because, again, they've only played everyone once, and now they're losing to a repeat opponent. The only thing I think you should take away is a more general point. They're facing the best funnel team in Korea, and they went funnel against them out of nowhere. That is what I think should be criticized. Twice. They do it twice in a row as well. This is the one team you do think knows everything in and out about funnel, and I think that decision is something I look at and say, what are you trying to prove? You could have just gone standard either of the games.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Griffin. After today, there's a lot to discuss, and I think we're going to have to shelve this Funnel-Lucian, or at least play a lot more scrims and be ready for it the next time
Go
around.
funnel against MVP. If this is the last game of the season, and they just play funnel because they don't want to show a strategy, sure. But we're in the middle of the season. They still have so much to play. The timing is what's so interesting to consider, and it's why we have to watch every Griffin series in the second round robin, think about what happened before, and see if we can see teams adapt their own play, having played this team before, and actually find some wins. When I was thinking about it before today, I was thinking 6-3 for Griffin in the second round robin because teams will adapt and beat them. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be even worse than that scoreline.
Yeah, as you mentioned, we shouldn't call stuff too early, but it's definitely not the way you want to start this round. But speaking of which, trying to charge on the back line, he lands straight onto Viper, says, hello, I'm playing Kled this time around. Nice engaged follow-up from Tushin. Not able to get any kills just yet, but Sword is going to get low before he can even get it in there. The tenders here from Rather are going to stun 3 people, and they do get the Alistair down here. Tarzan still alive, as is Viper, and Afreeca just going to back off and take the inhibitor.
First kill of the series comes 24 minutes into game number 2 from the side of Griffin. If you bet on that one, you're making a lot of money today, that's for sure. You see Afreeca Freecs back away. They still were able to take down the primary objective in taking that bot lane inhibitor. Watch the replay here. They roll in, and there's not enough gold onto either Viper or the members of Griffin. Very, very easy for them. Take the turret, and then when they start focusing on members, that's going to go well for Afreeca as well.
Bit of a sloppy fight overall. A lot of different damage going in many different directions towards the Cho'Gath, Tarzan surviving forever, Viper having enough of a front line, some members of Afreeca not fully committing, going for the inhibitors, stuff like that. But as you mentioned, I mean, Afreeca just way too far ahead at this point in the game. Let's take a look at the damage in that last one. Looks like the Lucian was actually able to do some with all those items they're funneling into him.
But some is not enough. They need to be able to find ascendancy in fights, especially when the fight is happening in their base at 25 minutes. But we had our reservations about the draw. I said it was a little bit better, but they needed to get the Drakes. They needed to get ahead. It didn't happen again, Valdez, and that's why we're in this scenario where another major mistake by Griffin, game's over.
Griffin coming off the high of round 1. There was the news that they received the extra bonuses. Very well deserved. It's really hard to come into LCK as a challenger team and just smash face against everyone that wasn't KT. Definitely deserved, but a bit of a bittersweet feeling now as they've been totally dominated by another strong team here in the LCK. I think they'll just have to go back to work and practice a little bit more. Again, this still is a very young and a very new team. We'll see if they can pull it back here.
Again, the point we'll get to is it's not the time for hard judgments for or against Griffin. They played funnel twice against Afreeca. I think that was the poor decision. But everything else is still up in the air. The future is still ready to be written as, whoa! He died to the W!
That might have been the first time it looked that awkward and obvious. We definitely have people die to W before, but it was the Zoe Paddlestar into him walking on the trouble bubble, which makes him stand still, funnily enough.
Tucson.
Nice follow-up engage here as the rest of Griffin, Viper in the background, just trying to culling and get a high damage number, because that's all he is going to get in both of these games. Trying to take out aiming now, but gets hit by that trouble bubble. They still have Lamb's Respite, by the way, just in case. Here comes the follow-up from Lehans. Gets a nice taunt. Tarzan gonna get low though on the back line. Keen able to do it. Spirit 2 is very fed. Sleep comes in on the Viper. He still wants to get a kill, but he will be denied. Only 2 kills in the whole series for Griffin, and a very clean 2-0 from Afreeca.